How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to In with Denoux featuring Jordan and Gio now. As you heard
Hey,
last episode, Gio is coming into the fold as a regular on the podcast. We launched the new logo last week, and we are just happy to have him and really hoping in the future we'll find times where all three of us can be on. But for the most part, it will be me and Jordan and me and Gio kind of on a rotating basis. And when we're able, we'll hop on with all three of us. But we are happy to have Gio. He's been a great third voice to the podcast. And as we talked about last week, it's just great to have this diversity of thoughts and voices. And also just like, it's just cool to have, white, black, Hispanic, like all these different backgrounds and viewpoints and things like that. Um, we talked a lot about even 2 weeks ago with Jordan and I talking about not wanting to be cowardly with our podcast and talking about the ICE situation. And we mentioned that last week when I was on with Gio as well. And Gio fits that mold. He is someone that speaks his mind, probably even more so to an extent than me and Jordan. But I
oh,
think that's really great. And I think it will be such a great addition just with all of us having strong opinions, but also having one goal in mind of wanting to bring people closer to God, bring people closer to
mm,
Jesus, but also speak to what's happening in our world today and also have some fun, which we will do today. So, since we've had a lot of dense episodes the last few weeks, Jordan and I just wanted to hop on and just talk some fun, talk sports. And I know Jordan has a fun announcement he was just telling me about before we hopped on, and his sweater is a hint. So, I'm going to pass it to him and let him start us off. And then we'll have some fun today. We'll talk some football. We'll just talk about random stuff. And hopefully, you guys enjoy the random discussion that we'll have. And it's a little bit more of a relaxed episode than the last few weeks. So, Jordan, let us know what the sweater is about and what you got going on this weekend.
for sure, for sure. But before I get into that, I know you said like Gio and I we're gonna get into this group. I'm like, and we haven't been able to have all three of us on. That man dodging me. I'm kidding. No, I love him. I'm excited about it. It would be really dope to ask him, 'cause I know he's a big Miami Hurricane fan, how he's feeling from this past Monday. But
Yes.
we got you,
Yes.
Gio. Like we'll find time to talk and process that with you. But yeah, man, y'all see the sweater. I'm out here in Seattle and I'm repping. Obviously, my Hawks are hosting the NFC Championship this weekend, and I actually found out that a friend of mine was generous enough to offer me a ticket at a significantly reduced price below market value. So your boy is going to the NFC Championship, and
Let's go.
we'll be yelling and just enjoying the time out there. Hopefully, we get that dub. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be loud. I've had the pleasure of going to Lumen Field a couple of times. My first game actually was against the 40 was when they played the 49ers back in 2021.
Mhm.
So and that year we actually swept the Niners. So that
Yeah.
was so it was loud. Oh my gosh. I've been in Ben Hill Griffith Stadium. I grew up in Gainesville, but Lumen Field might give it a run for its money in terms of
Wow.
how loud it gets. Like it's
That's crazy.
intense. Specifically for the rivalry games and close rivalry games. So I expect a little bit of similar atmosphere when I go out there. But yeah, man, I'm excited about that. I'm excited that we were able to smash the 49ers last weekend.
Yes.
And obviously we saw that the national championship was Monday night. There was a lot that happened in news just from this weekend with some of the sports, just seeing Denver, they made it, but they lost their quarterback to a broken
Yeah.
right? I'm like, Bo Nix got a broken ankle. CJ Stroud had a rough game against
Yes,
New
he did.
England. Like, I turned it on. So I was like, I was going to watch this, but I was also going to nap in between. like,
Yeah.
and it felt like every instance, like every 10 seconds, there was a turnover, an interception, fumble, an interception. I'm like, what is happening out there?
Yeah.
Like, so that was wild. It was a wild weekend, but that's just playoff sports or playoff
Yes.
football specifically. But yeah, man, I think the question I have for you, kind of going back to the national championship, is where do you
Mhm.
rank this Indiana team that just
Yeah.
went 16 and came from rags essentially to riches? with
Yeah.
like this generational run that they did. Like, where do you rank?
So when you say where do I rank them, you mean amongst like other championship teams?
Yeah, amongst
Yeah.
other championship teams, and we can do like championships we've witnessed. So like, go back to like in our lifetime, like even
Yeah.
in the '90s until now. Because some folks like to be like, let's go back to the '80s, like the '80s, the '70s, and '60s. That's great if you watch the highlights. I'm not gonna be like, oh, like the Gators of 1979, like which they
Yeah.
weren't good that year. They sucked that year. But that's besides the point.
So it's a really good question. And it's funny that you asked this question because literally it was either earlier today or yesterday. Someone was ranking the top, I think it was 10. It was either 10 or 12. It was basically since the playoff started, like since the
Yeah,
team playoff started, which I think was 10 or 12 years ago.
2014.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
so it
was
was
a little
12.
over 10 years ago. Yeah.
So it was 12. So they did those 12 champions. And to be honest, I couldn't tell you that many because I just don't remember well enough. Like I'd have to go back and
Mhm.
look at the teams and their rosters. But that list that I looked at had them ranked fifth of the 12.
Interesting.
And the
Okay.
teams that were above them, it was 2019 LSU at 1, 2020
Okay.
Alabama at 2. I believe it was 2018 Clemson
Okay.
at
Yep. With Trevor
3.
Lawrence. Yep.
2022 or 3 Georgia,
I
with
see that.
Stetson Bennett at
Yeah.
4 and at Indiana at 5.
Interesting. Okay.
And I felt like that was fair. So it's hard, dude. Because okay, let me put it this way. I thought that ranking was fair. However, which okay, this isn't gonna make much sense. A lot of the teams below, I think, would beat them. But it's just hard because you have to take into account the season that they had.
Exactly.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But the other thing is that, like, I said that about a lot of teams this season too. So I can't for sure say those teams, like some of the Alabama teams were ranked below that 5,
Yeah.
but a lot of the reasons they were ranked lower, like the Alabama teams were ranked lower, was because they were one-dimensional offensively and they just had a really good defense. So it was like a lot of those teams, like the Derrick Henry year when they won the national
Mhm.
championship, they
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
on Derrick Henry. You know what I mean? Like they didn't necessarily pass the ball super well that season, and then they had a very good defense. So I think like in the of the 12 playoff years, I would have them like in that 5, 6, 7 range, like somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But if you're going all the way back to like 2000 or whatever, I'd probably have a couple other like '01 Miami. I think would be at 2, like right below
Yeah.
2019 LSU, and then 2020 Alabama, I think slotted in at 3. So I think like middle of the road if you're talking playoff generation, but if you're talking like from 2000, like the last 25 years, I would say they were like in the like 8 to 10 range instead of the 6 to
Mhm.
7.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's fair, but it's just hard, man, because even like like even this year, right? Like obviously they did what they needed to do and they went undefeated, but it took like a miracle against at the time 2 or 3 win Penn State team,
Penn State. Yeah. Yeah.
to win. Like even in the national championship, like they got outplayed. You know what I mean? Like if they don't get that blocked, like I should say, like
Oh, they were physical. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, but Miami was more physical, I'd argue.
yeah,
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 Miami was more physical. Indiana was more efficient, but
yeah.
Miami was definitely moving that ball like it was nothing.
Yes. Like if you told me prior to the game that Mark Fletcher would have over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns and Malachi Tony would have over 100 yards and I would tell you Miami won the game. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So,
Yeah,
but there's 3 there, that's why there's 3 aspects to the game. It's not just
yeah,
offense and defense, but special teams as
yeah.
well. So,
I feel you. I feel you. You know, it's crazy. I have a little bit of more of a controversial, not a little bit. I was like, this Indiana team could make a case for the greatest college football team, and that's not me being exaggerating. It's just more of like looking at the season in a vacuum. Because something I think about, like to teams of the past, is what helps some of these teams of the past get elevated is the legacy they left outside of college, right?
yeah.
Like not just
Yeah.
what they did in college. Like 2019 LSU is a perfect example, right? Like Joe Burrow is one of the top quarterbacks in the league right now. So that helps elevate the status along with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, right? Like that helps
Yeah.
elevate the aura behind 2019 LSU. Same with '01 Miami. Ed Reed, Andre Johnson, Vince Wilfork, all these guys who were first rounders, who were perennial, like all pros and Hall of Famers, help elevate the aura behind '01 Miami. But if you look at the
Yeah.
season and who they played against, like I'm like, they were just their competition wasn't that good. Like if you look back, like you're just like they were just a super team, right? Like and they just really
Yeah.
dominated their competition, but the competition wasn't like Miami had to play Nebraska, who had a receiver playing quarterback who won the Heisman, like for the national title. Like it wasn't even a comparison. But I think about like Indiana, I'm like, wow, like we thought that no team could go undefeated in this
Right.
era. Like in terms of like the fact that you have to play more games against tougher competition, going undefeated feels like a long shot. Miami is arguably one of the best teams in the country, and they lost 2 games en route to
Yeah.
this, to teams that you think they shouldn't be losing to, like
Yeah.
SMU and Louisville. But Indiana went to Oregon, right, and beat
Yeah.
them. And it's so funny. I had an excuse every time Indiana beat a team that I didn't think they were supposed to beat. Every single
Yeah.
time. They beat Oregon, I was like, it's a one-off. Anybody can pull off an upset. They beat Penn State. I said, everybody's beating Penn State. They only had 2 wins. I legit was like,
Yeah.
everybody's beating Penn State. Then they beat Ohio State, held them to 10 points, the defending national champion. And I was like, oh, Ohio State made a lot of mistakes, which is true, but what's the common denominator and all that? Indiana won those games. So then I'm mad it took me to Alabama for me to realize this Indiana team is the best team in the country. Like they
Yeah.
went out and beat a perennial SEC contender, Alabama, right? Like it's not like Nick Saban's Alabama, but it's still they're Alabama. They recruit
Yeah.
well, good facility, all this stuff, good development, and they beat them by 35. Then beat Oregon by 38 points. Like it was something crazy like that. And then you beat Miami. It's like, oh, like we didn't just ask you to win your Big Ten schedule and all of that. You had to win 4 games against top 10 competition in order to win a national championship. Now,
Yeah.
legacy wise, none of these players could probably pan out in the NFL, right? Like it's very possible
Yeah.
that might happen. Now, that'll definitely affect the legacy of like, is this the greatest team? But if I look at their season and isolate their season, like you can make the argument that they are the greatest team in college football history. And that feels weird to say because it's so new,
Mhm.
but I look as I'm also like biased because I love the '08 Gators. Like that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Like the Florida team. Florida is my favorite school. '08 Gators are our best team that we have ever assembled, and we lost 1 game
Yeah.
that year. And they had a lot of great legacy after it. Like you had the Pouncey twins, you had Carlos Dunlap, you had Percy Harvin, you had players on that squad who would go on to have really successful NFL careers. You had Tim Tebow leading it, right? Like so, but even then, I'm like, I don't know. Would Indiana beat them? Like, I think they could. Like, football was a very different sport back then. Like, I don't know. Like, would it be more physical game? I could see that. Like, there's a lot of things. It's a fun debate for sure. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
like, man, this Indiana squad would look I don't see anybody stopping 2019 LSU's offense, but
Yeah.
defensively they were vulnerable, right? Like because they would give up like I think it was like 30 points a game or something like that.
Yeah.
And so like it's like what do we oh man, like that Indiana squad can give some teams a run for its money. Like if we
Yeah.
really look at just what they did in the season.
Yeah, I think my only well, obviously I'm a little biased first and foremost, but I do think it would be like I think LSU would beat that team by 4 touchdowns if I'm being honest. The reason I say that is I do think people forget that that defense by the end of the year was really good. Like early in the year, like, that was a year where no one believed the offense was gonna be that, right? Because they had spent
Right.
4 or 5 off seasons going back to Les Miles and, like, Ed Orgeron saying, like, the offense was gonna be better every year, and it just wasn't, right? And then they came out, and they were scoring, like, so fast that the defense was just on the field a bunch. So early in the year, they couldn't catch their breath because the offense was just scoring so fast. So they were giving up points. But then by the end of the season, they were like early in that, even the national championship game, early in that game, they gave up some points, but then they like locked it down the rest of the game,
Mhm.
like 17-7 or something in the first
Well, I
quarter.
even think about the SEC championship. They held Georgia to, like, 14 points and
Yeah.
still, like, beat 'em by, like, 20 or 21,
Yeah.
something like that.
And that was the other thing is that they were winning by so much that oftentimes in the fourth quarter, they were playing second and third string players on their defense. Like you had Grant Delpit won the Jim Thorpe Award, that year.
Yep,
Like,
yep,
like they
Eric
had,
Gary,
you
that's
know,
Christian Fuller,
yeah,
Derek
like they had
Stingley,
like so they I would venture to say that that defense
Patrick
probably had
Queen.
yeah, I was gonna say I think that that defense I would venture to say that that defense had more players drafted than the whole Indiana team will have drafted. So, like, that's why I think like, the other thing too is that they played some of the best offenses, like, Florida's offense was really good that season.
Yeah,
They also beat 2 Heisman
Alabama's was
they beat 2
elite. Yeah,
Heisman finalists that season, like Tua, Justin
Oklahoma.
Fields. Yeah. So I really do think that team would dominate Indiana, to be honest.
Yeah,
But that's
like,
just
not
me.
even a competition.
No, I really don't think it would be. Like, I mean, that Oklahoma team, they actually beat 3
Yeah.
Heisman finalists
They
now
had
that I think
CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Hurts.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think that they could make an argument for the best season because obviously no one's won that many games, but I just don't
Right.
think they argument of like greatest team of all time. Like if they actually played on the field, like LSU never trailed in the fourth quarter all that whole
Yeah,
season. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like they beat 7 top 10 teams. It
They
was just they
did.
broke some
They
wild like
did. They
I
did beat
agree with your
7
point
top
that
10 teams.
of like now, like the success that they're having in the NFL now adds to it. But at the same time, like they broke a ton of records in that season, especially offensively. So yeah, I think the Indiana team was better coached overall.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's what elevates them is that I think that they beat better competition this year because of their coaching.
Yeah.
And so but I
Like,
think that that couldn't overcome the talent that LSU had, in my opinion.
yeah,
So,
and that was what I was thinking when, like, I picked them. I obviously picked them at multiple times to lose games, and I watched Indiana in the regular season twice. I watched them against Oregon, and I watched them against Penn State. And the Oregon game, I thought, like, they made a lot of mistakes, but they're on the road, and Oregon felt like they collapsed, but it was really Indiana being more disciplined and taking the ball away and executing. And then Penn State, I genuinely thought Penn State should have won that game.
yeah,
I was under the impression that Penn State gave that game to Indiana, but Indiana found a way to like execute, right? Like it depends on like the side you lean on. Again, this is where I was like saying to myself, like, I have an excuse every time I was watching them,
yeah,
and yet they
yeah,
would still execute. They would still
yeah,
execute, but it's a fun experience because I'm thinking about them versus like obviously it's insane. It's insane to say this out loud, but like put 2025 Indiana against '01 Miami. You ask anybody, '01 Miami is winning by like 30 points. No, I don't think anyone would say Indiana is beating '01 Miami. But I look at '01 Miami and I'm like, who did they beat?
yeah. Well, I
That
actually think that game would actually be close, and hear me out on that one, 'cause
okay.
so recently I looked at, like, that Miami team because I saw someone debating, like, 2019 LSU, '01 Miami, and I looked
Yeah.
at that '01 team and hear me out because all the players that you bring up for LSU in 2019, all of them played pivotal roles, right? When I looked back at that '01 team, if you name the names, you can see why people debate like LSU, 2019 LSU and '01. But what I didn't realize is how many of those names were freshmen that weren't even playing a lot
Didn't
yet.
play. Yeah.
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 So it was like
Yeah.
Either Willis McGahee or Portis. I can't remember which one's younger.
McGahee. McGahee
So
sat behind
McGahee
Portis.
was a freshman. Like a bunch of the
Sean
defensive
Taylor.
yeah, were freshmen and they were behind other guys and didn't play much till the following years. So although all those names were on the roster, not all of them were starters or even playing
Yeah.
yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially in that era where it was more like wait your turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now there were a lot of players that were playing. Like obviously Portis was playing. Jockey was playing
Yeah, Ed
Ed
Reed,
Reed.
Ray Johnson,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So they were playing, but a lot of the guys that people name off that team weren't even playing a pivotal role yet,
yeah, yeah,
which
and,
is why I'm
I
like,
think
I don't know, could be close
yeah,
to Indiana.
and it's so interesting, right? Like, we look at we look at, like, 2000 to 2002 Miami, and so many players and just in that time period, I think there's 3 Pro Football Hall of Famers just from that school. Currently, like right now,
Yeah. Yep.
just so we kind of look at that age of Miami with a lot of aura, which is
Yeah.
fair because the legacy that they have commands that and deserves it.
Yes.
But if you look at like the individual seasons and how and who was on the personnel and stuff, you would think they're vulnerable. Like, you would think that there's opportunity for them to play a game that they slip up. Don't tell
Yeah.
anybody on that team that, though. Like, I remember I was watching Ed Reed on the Pivot podcast, and he said, "We will beat anybody."
Yeah.
That, like,
Yeah.
there's that confidence of, like, we will beat anybody. But I love these debates because 'cause I'm like, would you like, if I saw you against, like, 2013 Florida State or
Mhm, mhm.
'08 Florida, would you beat them? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe, like, but
Yeah.
it would be a fun thing to witness if we were able to get games like that, you know?
Yeah, 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 and it's interesting just because even I would have loved to see that defense, like, that defense against 2019 LSU offense. Because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
even with all those guys, like, are you like? Because I think people forget, like, Terrace Marshall
Terrace
was the
Marshall.
number 1 receiver for the first 5 or 6 games of that season till he got hurt, you know? And you had Thaddeus Moss, who didn't pan out in the NFL, but, like, was pivotal to that season. You had Clyde Edwards-Helaire
Mhm.
catching field. So there was just so many weapons, man, where it's like, I would have liked to see that. And then also, like, Miami had a weak link. He wasn't bad, but, they had Ken
Oh,
Dorsey
yeah,
at quarter,
Dorsey, Ken Dorsey. Yeah, yeah.
like, serviceable, which I think would have hurt that team. Like, for instance, against an LSU defense that wasn't elite, but I feel was very, very good by the end of the season. But do they
Yeah,
take it
yeah.
for that? I don't know. But I do think Miami probably could have run the ball and, like, kept the ball away from Joe Burrow a little bit,
Mhm.
or like a Tebow or Jameis Winston to bring up the teams that you brought up. Like, I do think that they would have been able to do that effectively against these newer teams. Like, that probably would have been their
Yeah.
strategy. And I think they could have done that effectively. But it's like, I was so young too. Like, I don't know what their O line was like. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so,
Yeah, they had a solid O-line with, like, Bryant McKinnie leading it.
okay, okay,
Like, 'cause I think he went first round if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, I love these debates because it's like, I mean, you could throw in '05 Texas into this
yeah,
mix, right?
yeah,
Like, a team that really doesn't get looked at with a lot of love, right? Like,
yeah,
but they argue, or 2010 Auburn, right? Like, with Cam Newton. Now,
yeah,
it was clear that he was the best player in all of football that year.
yeah.
Like, nobody could stop him. But he was able to be so successful to carry an entire team to an undefeated season in a national
Mhm.
championship, right? So it's like, I look at these squads, and it's like, some of it is like the just the perfect blend of talent and execution. Some of it is just like, we don't have the talent, but we know what we have. We have a lot of experience, right?
Yeah,
And so we've played a lot of reps and a lot of snaps together, and we can just, like Josh Pate said, finish each other's sentences on the field.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when you have that, like, it's really hard to beat. It's really hard to make that team make a lot of mistakes. And
yeah,
I think that's what was Indiana's strength this past year, was just they didn't really make a lot of mistakes. They forced you to make a lot of mistakes. They forced you to try to overcompensate with your talent.
yeah,
I saw that with Bama. I saw that with Bama. I saw that with Ohio State. Like, Ohio State, you kind of felt like Ohio State is more talented. It feels like they're toying with their food, like doing these crazy plays in the red zone instead of just trying to score points, missing field goals. It feels like you are just throwing away an opportunity, while Indiana's like, no, we'll play our game and we'll just execute and be disciplined. And I look at these teams that have missed talent, like LSU, Florida. I will say this: 2013 Florida State. I know we're going all over the place. They were a pretty disciplined and talent rich team.
yeah,
Like, I look at,
yep,
like, I'm not a Seminole fan, but like that squad, like, I look at defensively side, like how they just executed. I remember a game they had against Clemson that year, and it was like a top 5 matchup. And they went into Clemson, and them boys dropped 50 points on them and held Clemson to 13.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, wait, what is happening?
Yeah. That was a
This
very,
is
very good team.
that was a really solid
They
team.
were
Like,
really
I'm
good.
like, yeah. So I like doing these recaps just to kind of like get a sense of like where does this new team rank compared
Yeah.
to these teams of past. Like 2018 Clemson will be forever remembered for having their defensive line, like having
Yeah.
3 defensive linemen go first round. Like I'm
And
like,
they beat
that's
Bama so bad that year.
they
It was
beat
like
him so
48 to
bad.
17 or something like that in the championship.
Yeah, they destroyed them. They
Yeah.
destroyed them. Yeah, yeah.
So the other thing that I think Indiana, to me personally, and other people might say like, that's like not a great way to look at it. But like something that I think holds Indiana back a little bit in terms of all-time great teams is that when I start to think about it, and this is just kind of the world that we live in now, right? Where this is how it's going to be moving forward, is that all the really tough teams they did beat, the Ohio States, the Oregons, even Miami in the championship, it's like all of those teams either had first year starters like at quarterback or
Mm,
quarterbacks that had transferred in that were playing for the first year in that system, that team. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
Carson
yeah.
Wentz is older and he's played a lot of football and stuff like that, but
Dante Moore at
Dante Moore
Oregon, that's
transferred,
right. Yeah,
you
that's a very
know,
good point.
Julian Sane, first time
Julian
start.
Saint at Ohio
Like
State. Yep.
so a lot of the good teams that they beat have that, like 2019, Joe Burrow had been at LSU for a whole year prior. Tua that year had been, the starter for
He
2 seasons
Tua
at
won
that
a
point.
national title the year
Yeah,
before, right? Like,
yeah.
so Jalen was the
He
only
did
one that, like,
transfer,
he
you know,
transferred, but
but he
yeah,
transferred
it was
to a
Big 12.
quarterback
Let's
friendly
be honest.
yeah,
It was
and it
Big
was a
12.
super quarterback friendly, system with Lincoln
Yeah,
Riley at that point in time. But then Trevor Lawrence, like, had been in Clemson, had won the title the year before.
right, right.
I believe, like, I think it was him and not Deshaun Watson, if I remember correctly.
No, it was
Yeah,
Trevor Lawrence as a freshman. Yeah,
yeah,
Trevor Lawrence as a true freshman, like, quarterback Clemson
yeah.
to that national championship. And that's a good point you bring up of just, like, because of the transfer portal and because of this one thing that was really dope to witness about the Indiana game was I didn't know they had the largest living alumni base. Like
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know Mark Cuban was a alumnus of the pro and a booster. Like I'm like, oh, that's gonna do wonders for
yeah,
your program. Like if you have a good coach like they do in Kirk Cincinnati, and you have
yep,
booster support like that,
yep,
yeah, Indiana. I look for them to contend in the Big Ten for a long time, right?
yep,
But and I felt like I just got exposed to that. I'm sure many other folks who follow the sport did as well. But just that is sometimes the trick, and I think this is ultimately the curse of what Kurt Signetti just did. Now all these first year coaches, I have a hunch that there's going to be a lot of impatience in
yep.
fan bases that have had traditional like success in the past. Like, I don't know. Give me your take about this with LSU because I can definitely see this. I mean, Florida fans are already on the edge with this with Summerall. Like, it feels like
Yeah, yeah.
the first instance when he loses, there's going to be a lot of like, but I don't know if that's the same for Lane. Like, I feel like Lane might have a little bit more. What do you think?
So it's kind of funny because I feel like this has changed in like 10 days. So I think, and I'm speaking for me personally, and from what I've witnessed with like the LSU pundits that I listen to, and even like comment boards when I'm listening to those shows, is I think 2 weeks ago, everyone in LSU Nation, even with high expectations that LSU has, was thinking like, okay, this is going to be like a year 2 or year 3 thing. Next year, it's not going to be like this year, like where we're 7-6 or whatever. But I think like maybe a 8-4, 9-3, and I would have been like okay with that, like in our first year. But I think now that the transfer portal, they did what they've done, which is like ridiculous, like it's like
Yeah,
unbelievable
yeah.
what they've
They've had a
done.
great haul, phenomenal haul.
40,
Yeah,
41 players, bro, which is crazy.
insane.
And they're still trying to get the top offensive lineman in the portal. I think it's completely flipped. And now I think everyone's expecting at least a playoff berth. I think 10-2 with a playoff
Mm,
berth is bare minimum, I think now. And I think Lane, like,
Wow. Yeah.
one thing I'll give him credit is I think he's worked harder in recruiting in 2 weeks or a month than, like, Brian Kelly did in his whole entire time, like, there, you know? And so I
Yeah.
think that the expectation has flipped because, like, from even for me, I think I was thinking 8-4, 9-3 year 1, and then, like, year 2, year 3. The other thing that's interesting, which is, like, I'm excited about, is that 30 I think, when I read this, I think it's 36 of the 41, players that they got have multiple years of eligibility left.
Yeah.
Apparently, what a lot of the strategy has been is, spend everything you got, like, this season, and then hopefully you retain a lot of those transfer guys that have multiple years, so then you don't need to go get 41 next year. That you can
Right.
focus
Right.
a little bit more on high school recruiting and then just plucking, maybe like 15 to 20 from the portal instead of 40 from the portal. So I think it's kind of shifted to where now the only somewhat question mark right now, literally, is the offensive line because we kept two starters on our offensive line. Every other offensive lineman, the exception of like two or three, transferred. And then we brought in, I think 3, like, freshmen, 5 transfers, and then some guys that were redshirted and stuff like that to where I think we now have 12 or 13. But if we get this left tackle that's from Colorado, that's the number 1 tackle in the portal,
Yeah. Seaton. You weren't seeing. Yeah.
everything kind of falls into place because he just slides in. Because right now, if we didn't get him, I think the offensive line would be better than last year. You would just have to slide someone at left tackle that you feel like iffy about. Maybe they'll be fine, maybe they won't. But if you get him, you can slide the guy you would play at left tackle to their natural position of, like, either right tackle or one of the guard spots. So our starting center is back. He was our best offensive lineman. Like, he was really good. Then we have a true freshman or a redshirt freshman who played and struggled this year, but has really high upside, and I think he'll improve. And then you have transfer, like, pretty much all transfer guys. So I think to answer your question, I don't think it was like playoff/championship or bust in year 1, but now I do think
Yeah.
it's bare
Yeah.
minimum berth.
Yeah.
So
Which that it almost felt like with Brian Kelly, the bar was 10 wins, right?
yeah,
10 wins at least. And generally speaking, 10 wins should get you, and that's 10 wins before bowls, right?
yeah,
Like
right,
not 9-3 that you finish 10-3 with a bowl win. It's more of like, hey, can you be 10-2? Because that's going to put you in position for maybe a conference title or a playoff berth.
yeah,
And I can see Lane getting that. I can see Lane getting that level of success at
yep,
LSU, but I think it's just going to be more expected. Um, and part of me thinking with Cignetti winning at Indiana in his second year in this age, like especially with a program like Indiana. Indiana is a perennial,
yeah,
like they're the lowest of the low when it comes to historic success in college football.
yeah,
Like I think they're the second most program, like they have the second most amount of losses in college football history.
yeah,
Like just to talk about how rare this so the fact that Cignetti could do that in 2 years, right?
crazy, bro.
Like it tells me one how phenomenal of a coach he is, but how much people are going to think that that's replicable, you know?
Yeah,
That I'm just like,
yeah,
man, because
yeah,
I can even feel that. I can even feel like, okay, John Sumrall, like, what can you do realistically at the Florida Gators where we have a history of winning? We have a history of being, contending for the SEC or a history of winning the national championship. Like,
yeah,
we've never made the playoff. So can you realistically get us there? You should be able to. I don't know what you need to get us there. But if Indiana can go 16-0 in the Big Ten in 2 years, 2 years removed from having multiple losing seasons or losing seasons be their defining standard,
right,
like, why can't we expect something similar? And I would think, honestly, any Power Four coach or Power Four program can ask that,
yeah,
right? Like I think that about, especially ones that hire new coaches like Washington with Jed
yeah,
Fish. Like Washington should be able to ask that question. I think
Auburn,
Oregon can ask. Oregon definitely should be asking that question. Part of me feels bad for Dan Lanning what happened with Indiana
yeah,
because I'm just like, Like I know he's a good coach,
Yeah,
and I don't know
yeah.
what happened with Oregon, but I'm just I can understand if he's under a lot of pressure now to
Mhm.
win and try to
Mhm.
get something done. Because now this will be like I think year 4 or 5 that he's going into.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So a couple questions for you that I thought about like during this discussion. So, okay, one, so it's kind of crazy because I agree with you that now people are already thinking like this is going to be the norm. And so people are already, I already saw a video of people asking who's the next Indiana. And it was like UCLA, like, whatever, whatever. So there's that. But my question is, and I'm just going to use him as an example because it's the only example I could think of that was like similar to Indiana, but has had vastly different results. Dion at Colorado, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
he went to Colorado prior to Signetti going to Indiana, obviously. And when he took over, it was similar. So I looked at this the other day because I was just curious. Is so when Dion took over Colorado, their record the year prior was 1-11.
Yep,
And when
they won one game.
Signetti, yes, and so when Signetti took over the year prior, Indiana was 3-9. So like comparable,
Right.
or whatever. But Dion got a lot of praise for the next year winning 4 games after them winning 1. And obviously Signetti went from 3 to 11 and a
Right.
playoff berth.
Yeah.
And then obviously the second year they win a national championship. And then last year I think Colorado won 8 games, I think, or 7 games.
Yeah, they won 8 or 9 games. Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
something like that. So I thought that was like interesting because I kind of feel bad for Dion because now I think people are going to be like, well, why couldn't Dion turn around?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to be honest, I think a lot of that has to do with 2 things. One, I don't think Colorado has, well, I don't know. I don't know what their financials are like, but I do think like Signetti is a more seasoned coach than Dion.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that because Dion was such a amazing player, I think people are just expecting it to just transfer over to coaching, and I think that's a little unfair to him. So there's
Yeah.
that thought. I don't know what you think about that. Then I'll ask my second question after you answer that
Yeah,
one.
I do think Dion I think he's a victim of his own, like athletic success. Like he's a
Yeah.
Hall of Famer, college Hall of Famer, pro Hall of Famer, right? Like built a brand about being excellent. And then he went to Jackson State and turned that program around, right?
Yeah.
And had a
Yeah.
lot of success coaching there. And so because of that, and because he's a big personality and big presence, he was able to get the Colorado job. But I'm still trying to figure out who is Deion Sanders as a coach. Like,
Yeah.
like what kind of scheme does he like to run? And he strikes me like when you're playing the video game, there's like 3 archetypes you can choose. Are they a motivator? Are they a recruiter? Are they a strategist? And
Yeah.
he strikes me as a motivator. Like he loves his speeches. I've seen his speeches and stuff to his players. But I'm like, do you get the best play one? And does that talent always feel like they can execute well? And I just don't know if he
Right.
has the right personnel around him in terms of like coaches
Yeah.
that can get that out of this because I think Dion assumes that everyone's going to do everything at the level he expects.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, he needs to have more oversight over that, like in terms of
Yeah.
just like kind of like what Nick Saban did at Alabama, right? Like
Mhm.
Nick Saban was ready to dismiss coaches when they got distracted. He was
Yes.
ready to go off on coaches when players missed assignments and or calls didn't go in and get communicated. And Dion, I think personally, I don't think it's fair for me to expect Dion to be like Nick Saban. I don't think it's fair for me to expect any coach to be like Nick Saban. But I think probably a better comparable coach for Dion would be like Kirby because they seem to have similar temperaments in some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Like they can be very passionate, but they like Kirby. It's weird for me to say this about him because he coached in Georgia, but Kirby is both a motivator, but also an excellent elite recruiter. And he also can
Yes.
scheme at the defensive level. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like he can do all of those things and still get that from his players. I just don't know that Dion can do that with the talent he brings in. I don't know what it will take. I can foresee there being a lot of I haven't seen it yet, so it's good that you bring it up that like there's been comparison between him and Signetti because I think that
Yeah.
that's going to come. to haunt him. If he does not have success, like in terms of 10 wins next year, or 11 wins, or if he doesn't make playoff, then it's kind of like I think people are going to start looking for other coaches.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah, and it kinda sucks because and when I say this, this isn't me taking away what he did at Jackson State, but I do think it was a little bit of false like, fool's gold,
fool's
eh,
gold, fool's
only
gold.
be
Yeah,
only because he obviously had his son, who was a very highly rated quarterback coming out of high school, who would have
yeah.
never gone to Jackson State had his dad
He
not
had
gone
both
there to
his
coach.
sons and Travis Hunter,
And
like, at
exactly.
Jackson State. Yeah,
Exactly, and it's like
yeah,
those guys, it would have been like, varsity playing against JV, right? Like, those guys
yeah,
were so much better than the competition level where it was like, yes, he did turn around that program, but it helps when you had 3 players and really 2 main that were just so far superior to everybody else that they were playing and at
yeah,
positions that make a difference, quarterback,
yeah,
receiver, and DB, like so I think that was like if you don't have even just like Travis Hunter, like do you really turn that program around the way he did? And even at Colorado, right? And then once those
yeah.
guys were gone, I think you're seeing more of like an early coach that is still learning how to coach,
Yeah,
where he can
yeah. Well,
now
because I
be
even
at
think,
equal
like,
talent level.
bringing Shador and Shiloh, like, he's coached them since they were very little. He coached them in
Yeah.
high school
Yep.
and then coaches them in so, like, it almost felt like when they were getting ready to go to the NFL, it's like, does Dion just take an NFL coach job so that he
Right.
can coach
Right.
with them? Because it seems like that formula actually does work, like, in some
Yeah.
ways, like, coaching Shador, coaching Travis, coaching Shiloh, like, they have some synergy, like, those are some good pieces to actually build a college program around.
Yeah.
And Dion knew how to get the best out of those players. He
Yes.
absolutely, like, could so I'm like, does it make sense for him to transition and be in an environment where he can coach them specifically?
Right. Right.
But even then, that's not the sign of a good
Right.
college coach, right? That's not a sign of a good long, like, because you should be able to have success despite not being able to coach players like that, right? Like, you
Yeah.
should be able to have
Yeah.
success despite having those specific players. Like,
Yep.
and I think time will tell. Like, I hope he does have like a successful year next year. Like, I want Colorado to be successful, but even the aura around watching Colorado football has changed, right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
I have not been interested to watch Colorado ball this year. I've watched one
Mm-mm.
game of theirs. Like, I watched their very first game, and just watching it, the energy was different. Their offense was not moving the ball. Like, I was just like, Shador's not there. Shiloh's not there. I'm like, all of the receivers that Shador threw to, including Travis Hunter, are not there because they all got
Yeah.
drafted.
Yep.
Like, this is not. I'm not excited to watch these games anymore. Whereas,
Yeah.
like,
For sure.
in 2022 and 2023, or 2023 and 2024, I was like, "Oh, this is exciting! Like, these boys are playing hard, even if they're not winning or they're getting playing for clicks."
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
fun. That was a funny. What I'm saying? Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm curious to see some of these other coaches too. Like for instance, like one of the like everyone knows that Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time, and it's easy to see
right.
why. But something that I think is underrated, actually, like if there's anything that could be underrated about Nick Saban, is that he's the only coach that I've seen that every year he lost his coordinators and it didn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
every year he lost his
Yes.
coordinators. So I'm curious to see some of these younger, like for instance, Oregon lost both of their coordinators, so head coaching jobs, right, to Kentucky, and I can't remember where their defensive coach is going, but they
He's
both.
going to UCLA. I think Tosh Lapoy, I think, is going. No, he's not, because Bob Chesney is going there. But he's going
Was
somewhere.
it Iowa
He's going to
State?
Cal. That's what it is. He's
Cal,
going to
Cal.
Cal.
That's right. That's right. So I'm curious to see like does that affect Dan Lanning, and even like Lane at
Yeah.
LSU, like Blake Baker had 2 offers for head coaching jobs this like cycle, and he turned them both down, including his alma mater, which everyone thought it was a done deal, and he decided to stay. But like eventually he's
Mm,
going to lose Blake Baker, and most likely he's probably going to lose Charlie Wise Jr. at some point too. So it's like, how does he
right.
do like once he starts losing his coordinators? Even Signetti, like, do they start to lose their coordinate, so I'm curious to see,
Yeah.
is anyone going to be able to do that like Nick Saban did in this new era of coaches?
I think
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
closest one that could do that is Kirby. Like,
Yeah,
as
I can
much
see
as I
that.
hate it, like, essentially been doing it. He lost Buster Faulkner to like, there was some disputes between him and I'm glad we got him because Buster
Yeah.
Faulkner was their OC when they won the last 2 titles. But
Monken,
like,
they lost Monken.
but then he also lost Dan Lanning, right? And so
Yeah, that's
like he
true.
got
That's
like,
true.
so the fact that Kirby is still having like top 5 recruiting and he won back-to-back SEC titles, right? Like he's
Yeah, yeah,
still, now he's not winning, he hasn't won a national title in a couple of years, but we don't really expect in this day and age to win a national title every year. That's never been like a fair expectation. Like people didn't even expect that of Nick Saban.
right.
Nick Saban didn't win one every year. Now he was contending for one
Yeah,
just about every year,
yep,
but I don't know if we will get to that level again. And Kirby is only 3 years removed from his last national title.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think I mean I hope he doesn't get back to that for the sake of my Gators.
yeah,
Like I hope
yeah,
like
yeah.
we are able to ruffle that, but I think he's right now the closest.
Mhm.
Signetti might be on something like with Indiana and just seeing if he can continue to keep that up. Ryan Day will be also interesting to watch just because he's losing his
Yeah,
OC,
yeah, that's true.
but yeah, yeah.
And the just an interesting fact too is that the last four coaches, like in the college football playoff, were all Nick Saban trees, which is crazy. So,
Honestly, I had a refined like a newfound respect for Pete Golding
mhm,
after like seeing him step in because I didn't know
yeah,
he was under Nick Saban as well. But I
yep.
was like, oh, this dude is Ole Miss's coach. Like he should be the long term head coach. Like he's he can get the most out of his defensive players.
Yeah,
Like, and I wish he could keep Trinidad Chambliss because that would be a very fun run for them next year. But it looks
I
like
think
that's not
he's
going to work.
I
Yeah.
think he's gonna end up with it, bro. I think
You think so?
yeah, just because there's just everything's the Wild West, so I think he'll end up getting it. I don't really know why, because I think he should just go to the draft. Like, I think he could potentially be a first round pick. So I'm like, why are you
I
trying
do
to come
too.
back? Like, what's the? I
It
don't
is
get.
strange that he wants to come back because I'm like, dude, if you perform well at the combine, you will probably be a first round pick.
Yeah, because it's a
And
weak
I could see that.
class.
It's a weak, but he even at one point there were multiple analysts during the playoffs saying Trinidad Chambliss and Kirby said that himself. Like Trinidad Chambliss is the most dangerous quarterback left
Yes,
in the playoff.
yes,
And he's still and even like that's even saying that over Fernando Mendoza, who I think
yes.
is the smartest quarterback left, right? Like,
Yeah,
but in
yeah.
terms of talent, Chambliss is arguably
Ceiling
more
is higher.
talent.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
I personally would love to see him come out just because, like it's looking like Mendoza's gonna go first, but then I'm like,
Who's gonna go
who else
second?
is behind it? Yeah, like
Yeah,
who's gonna go second? Like I think Chambliss could go second. I think there was talks of Dante Moore, but Dante Moore's coming back. Like he's
yeah,
coming back to Oregon.
exactly.
So like there's not really a lot of people coming out of this class for quarterback.
No, not at all. Yeah, and what's crazy is that even if Lane Kiffin had stayed at Ole Miss, it still would have been all Nick Saban disciples because
Yeah.
he was too. But okay, last thing that I'll ask you, and then we'll sign off. I heard this idea because everyone's been talking about how the schedule of college football, especially at the end of the year, is just terrible, right? Like
Yeah.
coaches like Lane Kiffin having to leave his team in the middle of a playoff, or when they're about to go on a playoff run, like
Right.
the
Right.
transfer portal's open while the playoff's still going on. So it's like all these teams are trying to prepare for the playoffs, but also having to focus on the portal. Kids that are in those games are entering the port. Like it's just kind of crazy. So I heard this idea and I was curious to hear what you thought because I was like, man, it's not perfect, but I could see it working. So Dan Lanning was actually the first one that said it, and then other coaches have repeated after. So he was saying at the very beginning of the season, like where they have week 0, right, to put bowl games there, right, to where it wouldn't be by obviously by record like at the end of the year, but you'll have these really fun games at the beginning of the season where you have like Big Ten versus SEC, ACC versus SEC, like all these games, just like the bowl games, and you have that at the beginning of the year. And I honestly don't know if they are doing that as like exhibition games, like preseason games, or if they actually go towards regular season record. But then you don't have all these like useless bowls where kids are opting out, at the end of the year. And then you just hop right into the playoffs and you can spread the playoffs out a little bit through December. And then you have the national championship like the first Monday of the new year or like on the first, like we used to have it. And then the portal opens on January 2nd for everybody. And then coaches can go ahead and, get their new job. Everyone enters the portal at the same time. Like all the teams have the same opportunity to get players in the portal. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. I know it changes the mentality of what bowl games are, but they've kind of become useless at this point unless you're in a like New Year's Day bowl or something.
Totally, totally. Well, so I'm personally like I do see bowls as useless in the current format, but I do
Yeah.
think there's a way to implement them that will make them really, really fun. And it's actually Josh Pate's model. Like he proposed a really cool. So I'm stealing this, but it's really his, but he proposed the idea of moving week 0 is now week 1. So move up the calendar one more week. So that way rivalry games finish the week before Thanksgiving. The
Okay.
week of Thanksgiving would be conference championships, but instead and alongside conference championships, the teams that didn't make their conferences that are highest ranked would play in the bowl games.
Yes,
And
yes. I
then
heard
and so it'll
this.
be like the Sun Bowl, the Citrus Bowl,
Yeah.
the Pop-Tart Bowl, whatever. It'd be like 6 bowl games, but
And
they
they
would be
count
like
to the
essentially
playoffs.
playing. Yeah,
Yes,
they would
yes,
be
yes,
playing
yes.
games, and then Selection Sunday happens right after that. And then you have the first round a week after that, which is the first week of December. Second week of December, you have the second round. They would both be on campuses. And then it would only be at the semifinal round that you would have neutral site games. And that would be like your
Yeah.
Orange Bowl, your Rose Bowl, things like that. Ideally, though, if you had a semifinal beforehand, you could theoretically have the Rose Bowl be the national title by
Yeah.
New Year's. But the idea is to
Yes.
crown a champion by New Year's or sometime in that window. And I like that.
Yes.
I like that a lot. I think that is a better model, frankly, than what we have
Yeah.
now. And then I think it would solve a lot of this windows and stuff. But I do got to sign off. Baby just
Yeah.
woke up and it's my
Yes.
shift.
All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us. I hope you had fun with us after some heavy episodes. So we love you guys. As always, thank you for supporting us, and we are signing off. We will see you next week.
We out.